I'm Christopher Schoenwald, and welcome to Life as a show intently focused on helping people find their professional pathway by exploring and unearthing the details of jobs from around the world. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to throw this out there. I have a channel over on YouTube, Life as a ... which basically hosts highlights from these audio conversations that I have with these great guests. They typically run 10 to 15 minutes, and they're there to kind of present a different vantage point. You know, for people that aren't into audio, aren't into podcasts, but are still looking for career advice, ideas, help, all that great stuff, send them over to YouTube. Like I said, Life as a ... And if you do get over there, I would love that like or subscribe. I mean, it's the best way to let that algorithm know that the content is worth sharing and should be out there. So anyway, I do thank you for letting me plug this a little bit, but I think it's about time to get into today's episode. One of the most compelling things about living in the 21st century has got to be just how transformative of a time it represents. Ways of learning, discovering new ideas, finding new sources of inspiration abound. I mean, mediums for doing all of this are all around us. Take this podcast on career discovery. Here we deep dive into career learnings in ways that literally 5 to 10 years ago did not exist. However, listening to pods isn't the only way to explore new ideas. You have apps, social media, AI, and so many other tools, including traditional means to go about finding and learning. Well, on today's episode, we're going to explore some of that and one particular guest's mission to transform career learning and discovery opportunities for young people. Now, as you can well imagine, this is an issue near and dear to my heart, so I couldn't be more excited to introduce our guest to you. And here you're going to learn all about how he and his startup biz are positioning to leverage existing social habits of youth in ways that allow young people to explore new career possibilities in an engaging and fun way. Plus, you'll also get some really great inside looks at early stage entrepreneurship. So I do encourage you to stick with me and give this episode your undivided attention. But first off, let me introduce our guest and then we can slide into this conversation. Ryan Palmbaum is the founder and CEO of Dabbl Discovery, an educational, bite-sized video learning platform designed to help people discover and follow new interests and career paths through short videos created exclusively by experienced experts in a wide variety of industries. Now, Dabbl combines the engaging, fast 1 to 3 minute format of TikTok with the quality content and creators of Masterclass or TED Talks to sit at the peak of engaging education. Now, before entering the EdTech space, Ryan was a world-traveled ex-collegiate and professional soccer player, having lived in 10-plus countries across 3 different continents, all before he turned 20. And throughout his travels, he decided to become a jack of all trades and a master of some. And get this, he was a commissioned painter, graphic designer, and musician, while also studying video game programming, finance, psychology, nutrition, and much more. And Ryan moved back to the United States in 2019 and obtained his bachelor's degree in finance and management from SUNY University at Albany. Rather than pursuing a normal finance career out of college, he decided to pursue his passion of making the top educational content in the world accessible to everyone, no matter their financial situation or social status. And Dabbl is excited to be a hub for the top educational video creators to share their unique experiences in a more streamlined way without being diluted down with misinformation and dangerous content that dominates conventional social media platforms. Ryan and Dabbl are focused on learning from the market and listening to the creators and users to develop the best platform for career and interest discovery possible for everyone involved. So, with all of this noted, I'd like to welcome you to my conversation with Ryan Palmbaum. Yeah, so welcome to the program. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, really excited for this. I mean, there's a certain crossover here, I think, between what you're doing and what I'm doing. So I definitely, have an interest in learning more about this. And I think, as we were just speaking off air, the platform that you have, I think it hits, man. It hits. I've, checked it out myself, and I love how it's striking this balance right now for a lot of youth, like these bite-sized clips of finding out about different career options. So yeah, I definitely appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I do have this first segment lined up. It's something called Coloring Wikipedia. As my listeners know, it's a segment where I just read off a definition of something related to what the guest is all about. Now, I did go with career. Surprise, surprise. So let me just read off this Wikipedia definition of career, and then maybe you can comment after. Does it sound okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so here we go. Career. The Oxford English Dictionary defines the word career as a person's course or progress through life or a distinct portion of life. This definition relates career to a range of aspects of an individual's life, learning, and work. Career is also frequently understood to relate to the working aspects of an individual's life, as in career woman, for example. Third way in which the term career is used describes an occupation or a profession that usually involves a special training or formal education considered to be a person's life work. There we go. A few different ways of sort of tackling the meaning of this. But first take, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that a career really is something that you are good enough at doing, that someone is willing to pay you to live sustainably, and that you love enough to be able to do it for over a third of your life, right? I think that a career is really just it's an extension of who you are, and you have to really choose wisely of what you pursue. As I think there's definitely a life cycle when it comes to the career journey as well. And I think in those early stages, that's where the younger people should really, test things out and take these sort of calculated career risks. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective there. And one of the things that you said, and I think was brought up in the definition as well, is this notion of the life component and how that's attached to it all. Because you're right. I mean, when you sink yourself into a certain career, whether it's teaching, whether it's working on nuclear reactors, I mean, like your life sort of evolves around that. You interpret the world differently, right? So, I mean, I think that's a really important point. And the second thing that stood out from what you just mentioned was that, this notion of trying out a few, taking these calculated risks and seeing what you like, because you are going to be devoting a third of your life to this. You might as well, take some time and again, find out what is appealing to you and maybe what's not. So yeah, I appreciate those insights there.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's always everything's a learning process too. So if you make mistakes early on, you'll be able to really get closer and closer to what you're going to actually pursue through that later portion of your life.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this might be an opportune time to hear a little bit more about your business, Dabbl Discovery, in terms of maybe, what the model is, when you guys established, all of these things. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So Dabbl is an educational micro learning video app. We're building essentially the TikTok of education. We help users find and follow different interests, fields of study, career paths, all for free and all in 1 to 3 minute bursts. So I think that expertise comes with experience, and the only people on the platform who have access to post videos are vetted, trusted experts and educators in a variety of different fields. So that the information you're getting is quality. Really, our goal is to make that career discovery and taste test sort of process easy, engaging, and organic, because realistically, it's a really daunting time for people transitioning from not knowing what they want to do with their life to figuring out what they're going to do for the rest of their life. So that's what our whole MO is.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I think it just fits with the times right now, the way people consume content, especially young people, on a podcast such as this and, exploring careers and having a similar sort of goal of exposing these different options to people. When I first started launching this, the episodes are going 40 to 55 minutes in length, and then trying to get people to listen to these in full was a bit of a challenge, to be honest, unless you're really keyed in on that. So that notion of paring things down and giving these bite-sized clips of allowing them to kind of, see if they're interested in it. And then from there, they can go off and pursue. I mean, there's tons of resources out, these days to learn more about things. So yeah, I think it just hits in that way. And I think the way it's structured as well, of having experts, relating their insights. Yeah, really valuable for young people. When did you guys get started?
We've been in business for about a year now. that from idea stage.
Yeah.
So it's been a long process up until now, but yeah, we've been around for about a year, and we started really picking up probably a couple months ago. Really excited for where we're taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, maybe we could slide into this other segment here, a day in life. And I think listeners always find it interesting to hear founders, experience within their business. I mean, certainly this depends on the stage of development, where they're at within the company and, how big the company is itself. But as you just said, I mean, you're in that stage right now of building this business and growing it from probably the ground up. So, what is it like and what are you doing on a day to day?
So, as an early stage startup founder, I will say that it's very, very unpredictable day to day. You have to adapt a lot. But, I will never ask anyone to do something that I won't do. So, I'm very boots on the ground, involved in every aspect of the company, whether that's design. I'm not necessarily a coder myself. I have basic knowledge on code, but helping people find bugs and fix those, recruiting the creators, speaking with parents, students, principals, superintendents, all that kind of stuff. Fundraising is a big part of my job. Really, it's everything that has to do with the company I'm doing at any point in the day. I also practice what I preach, and I try to help myself as much as I can. I always make time for a workout and at least listening or reading a book for at least 30 minutes a day. So, yeah, I mean, I eat well. I don't sleep that well. That is definitely
There's
something
always
that
something, right? Yeah.
I will say the one thing that I sacrifice, I would say, is sleep. But yeah, pretty much 100% of my time is put into benefiting the company.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I mean, from my experience in speaking with a number of different founders on this program, it seems to me that like you're just constantly wearing so many different hats. And, when you're just starting out these companies, like the number of hats that you're wearing is, yeah, well, you can hardly count them all. To be honest, I'm sure like you said, you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Is there anything that you naturally gravitate towards, like role or responsibility wise within the company, things that interest you?
I mean, I'm naturally just on the marketing business side. Like that's my main role because I studied business in school and all of that, but also really the design side is something that I'm super passionate about because I'm sure I'll say this a lot throughout this podcast, but I grew up in a really creative house, right? So I learned how to paint, how to do graphic design, how to draw. So I was always really interested in design and things like that. So yeah, I would say I'm heavily involved in that process, and so I'd say design and business are really my two biggest areas.
Conversely, are there areas that you've kind of had to push yourself towards that are of critical importance that you have to do, but are a little bit more challenging to you? And
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the technical side is definitely the part that I lack because I never learned coding on a really masterful level. But, being in the business for about a year now, I really threw myself into the fire and had to learn as much as I could to be able to talk to my developers, understand what was wrong or understand what was right, and move and figure out a plan how to move forward. So really it's about just throwing yourself in and hoping that you come out alive. So
well said, yeah. No, I like that insight. And the reason I asked that second question there is I think for founders or for anyone who's starting something new, it's easy to go towards what you know and what you're comfortable with, right? And a lot of people might avoid the things that they don't want to necessarily do. But when, again, you're in a startup, you have to be concerned with all elements of your business and how you go about navigating the things that you're not as strong in and you're not as confident in, I think really can set you up for success or the opposite at times. So, like you said, diving into it, trying to figure things out as much as you can so you can communicate with your developers, for example.
asking questions,
Yeah.
asking questions and not being afraid to be the quote unquote dumbest person in the room. Like people naturally want to help you and want to explain and collaborate. So really it's just not having too much pride to sit there and not understand things, ask questions, clarify. That's been a huge part of my job, and that's part of the reason or a big part of why I actually am where I am. I love to ask questions and I love to hear different points of view, and also I like or I don't like rejection, but I get a lot of rejection. So asking questions, the worst thing people can say is no, and yeah, just continually learning.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think that's really valuable insight for listeners, especially for young people as well, to hear that, because yeah, it's certainly an ingredient to success. A lot of the people that I have in this program, they're midway through their careers, or their businesses are quite mature, and they still have that exact same approach, and they always reference it or make note of it. So I think you're well ahead of the game, and again, valuable insight for listeners here. Well, I would like to meander into this other segment here, a pathways one. And off the top, I did mention, your background being quite unique, and also too, I mean, how we were introduced to one another was through this mutual connection. And what was communicated to me was that you had this really compelling backstory. I mean, you're a professional soccer player, you're living in 10 different countries, 3 different continents, all before the age of 20. Beyond that, you've sampled a number of different professional, maybe careers or experiences, I guess. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about all of that, and then ultimately how this sort of came together to where you are right now with Dabbl Discovery.
Yeah. So, like you said, I was born and bred really to be a professional soccer player. My whole life was geared towards that. I traveled the world playing soccer all over Europe, South America, all around the world. And when I was 10 years old, I moved to Argentina to play on a professional youth academy. And when I was 16 years old, my pro soccer dream was realized, and I signed a contract with a team in Greece. And I was completely on my own at that point. And yeah, and then I was there for 1 year, and then I moved to Spain for 2 years. So I did all of this, traveled all around the world, all before I was 20 years old. Yeah, I mean, I was living a pro soccer dream, but really I was getting a lot more than just the soccer, which at the time I didn't know, but now I do. I learned new languages, I learned how to communicate with people from all different cultures. And really throughout this whole process, I learned that I love to learn. Yeah, I mean, because you can't run on a field for 24 hours a day or your legs will fall off. There's a lot of downtime. So I started to, just pick up new skills, pick up new hobbies, and just learn as much as I could. And like you said, graphic design, painting, music, video game design, nutrition, finance, pretty much anything that I was interested in, I would try and I would learn about. So learning became a really big part of my life. And fast forward to now, or to a year ago, starting Dabbl, I wanted to help people find what they love and what they're passionate about organically, easier than I did. The problem is that the best content from these experienced people is usually behind a paywall, or it's really long. And this generation doesn't necessarily want to invest time or money unless they know that they're going to be for sure interested in something. And then another problem is that the good short form content is kind of muddled in with all the other misinformation, dangerous videos on these big social platforms. So I decided I wanted to fix it and sort of combine the two.
I guess, was Dabbl sort of based off of your own maybe struggles with trying to figure out what you wanted to do, like your own professional pathway?
Yeah, actually, when I was in my last semester of college, I was pursuing a finance career, and the whole typical finance kind of pathway. And I was trying to learn more about finance and about anything that I would need to know in the interview process and everything. And I naturally was a young person on TikTok, and my TikTok feed would be filled with a little bit more. It would start to cater towards my finance interest, but I would see a quality video, and then I would swipe and I would see something stupid, and I'd swipe and see something stupid.
Right,
And
right.
I would go through this process, and then I would kind of forget about what I just learned, and then I'd find another good video. But also, I never knew for sure if the person that was, you know, telling me the information was trusted. Sometimes it could be, you never know if it's going to be a 20-year-old who just is trying to sell you a course saying, here, pay me and you'll be able to make $10,000. That's not really what I want to be learning from. I want to be learning from these really experienced, successful people. So yeah, really it was, out of necessity for me as well is why I built this platform.
Okay. All right. But you had like this vision of like, okay, I'm going to go all the way with finance. But along that journey, then you decided to veer off and do this.
Yeah, I mean, finance wasn't necessarily my passion. It was more of a means to an end, and I was good at it. I understood it, and I knew that pretty much anything that I put my mind to, I was going to be good at what I was doing. I finished with soccer, and I kind of had this hole in my life that I wanted to fill, but I didn't know what to fill it with, because my whole life soccer was my passion, and I didn't have anything that could kind of cover that, right? So I wanted to get into my career, and I wanted to start building my career up. And finance was really the path that I saw to make money, to kind of set up my life and get there. But it wasn't necessarily what I was super, super interested in. It was just more of a means to an end. And then Dabble came along, and and that was really what sparked that passion again. So I was able to kind of transfer all my energy from soccer into Dabble and then build it to where I am.
Okay. So entrepreneurship wasn't on the radar at all until you reached a certain point. Then it just sort of,
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I remember growing up and watching Shark Tank when I was 5 years old, building prototypes out of tinfoil and and giving pitches to my parents in the living room. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and my dad was a serial entrepreneur as well. He's my biggest inspiration in my entire life, and so I grew up with entrepreneurship, but I didn't necessarily want to start something just to start something. I wanted to start something because I really believed in it and because I really thought it was going to change a lot of lives and a lot, help a lot of people. So I was less searching for the opportunity, but open to the opportunity. And then when it dawned on me, that's when I decided to jump.
got it. Okay. All right. Well, maybe you could slide into this other segment of Q&A Discovery. You can continue this back and forth. And I have this other question here. I'd like to continue this course of our conversation right now, a bit about your past here. Off the top, I did mention that, in your own words, you decided at one point to become this jack of all trades and master of some. And we've already spoken lightly about it. I mean, you're a commissioned painter, graphic designer, musician, while also studying video game programming, finance, psychology, nutrition, and a few more things. Getting back to that time, were some of those explorations, I know you already mentioned they're guided by learning and your thirst for learning, but were you also kind of thinking that, well, if I try out all of this, perhaps one of these things is going to stick, like maybe this could be the alternative to this career within finance or something that, sparks a different type of passion, something closer to what you were experiencing while being a professional soccer player?
So at that time, it was not conscious at all. I was in on being a soccer player, and I was thinking I was going to be the next Messi. I was going to be the American Ronaldo. I was going to make it big, and I wouldn't need anything else. I just really was a curious person. So yeah, and I like trying new things. And every time I would get good at something, I felt really accomplished. And you know, through that, really, I mean, like I said, it wasn't conscious at the time, but now looking back, really a lot, the culmination of all those skills that I built up has helped me so much in my professional and personal life up until now.
In what ways would you say? I mean, sorry to put you on the spot here, but
Yeah. So it's less about, oh, I can make a poster look pretty, or I can, play a killer drum solo if someone wants it you know, on the fly. But typically there's never a conversation that I can't walk into and make some type of mutual connection with the person that I'm talking to, whether that's geographical, field of study, or even just like a book that we both read. Over all that time building up these different skills, I've been able to sort of, build these things that connect with all different types of people. And I've learned over the years how to connect with all different walks of life and be able to make these personal connections to people and make the conversations a lot more personal.
Yeah, yeah, and it's certainly a valuable skill. Obviously just a life skill, but then also too, if you can apply that to business in the professional sense as well. Building relationships and establishing relationships. So yeah, another thing I like about this is this notion of reflection and reflection on some of your past activities. Like I think some people might, they could easily dismiss experiences like that and be like, okay, well, that was a time in my life, and all right, well, that's what it was. But in reflecting on it, like you have done, and the way you're kind of sharing it right now is like you're seeing the value in it and what you can take away from it moving forward based on some of those experiences. And I think that's a key point for not only young people, but for anyone, in general. I mean, there's a lot to be learned from our past if you're taking the time to sit back and reflect on it. So I really liked hearing that. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs. He says that you can't connect the dots moving forward. You can connect the dots looking backward. So you never really know when the dots are going to connect. So just try new things, learn new things, and sort of make yourself as well-rounded as possible, because you just never know what different opportunities are going to arise from all the continuous learning that you do.
Yeah, well said. I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's such a key learning right there. Well, I got this other question, and getting back to the company itself, Dabble, and how you ultimately, came up with the business model. I can kind of piece it together from what you shared already, but all the same, I'd still love for you to kind of bring it together for us, maybe.
So if you look at almost every industry, you'll see a really common trend, right? So think about Walmart and Whole Foods, which you wouldn't expect me to connect tech with Walmart and Whole Foods, but just think about those two. And you can find pretty much every product that's at Whole Foods at Walmart, and probably at a cheaper price. But for some reason, there's a subset of people who prefer to shop at Whole Foods because everything is in one spot, all the healthiest products, best products, and the reputation is just that it's sort of at like a higher echelon, essentially. And then transitioning into tech, you look at LinkedIn and Facebook. On the surface, their interfaces are pretty much identical. There's not much that you can do on LinkedIn that you can't do on Facebook, or vice versa. But for some reason, it's used in completely different ways. I mean, there's nothing stopping a LinkedIn user from going and learning about all their venture capital insights on Facebook. But all of the professional people and content is all on one platform and all together, right? So people naturally gravitate towards LinkedIn because they're looking for that. So, I see these as sort of us at Dabble and TikTok. We can provide, this community of engaged, active learners to these high level professionals, and essentially be, the Whole Foods to Walmart.
Yeah, yeah. I like it, man. I like the concept, as I said earlier. As far as, when you began to formulate these ideas, this was after you'd come back to the States. And then it was during that time that you started to play with these ideas and sort of, as you'd mentioned earlier, sort of connect up the dots a little bit. In terms of like the technical side of it, I can see, again, like just looking around and understanding the environment that we're within, young people and how they're consuming media, the assumptions would be easy to make about like, oh yes, this could potentially hit. In what ways did you go about like trying to validate your concept, I guess, because that's a big part of, starting any business, as you know, and I think it'd be valuable for listeners to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I spent months and months of just constant research. Like I said, I'm very boots on the ground. I did a lot of interviews with students, teachers, parents, creators, educational creators, people who knew me, didn't know me. I would do anonymous surveys. I would do actual in-person surveys, all this stuff. And I wanted to get a feel for if it was even needed or wanted. And the general consensus was that it was, from pretty much every demographic that I talked to, but there just wasn't anything really out there that captured what we were looking to do. And a lot of the time people don't know what they're looking for until it's in front of them. So yeah, I did a lot of validation work, and I'm a very calculated risk person. I like to I like to do my research, but I also like to trust my gut. So I didn't wait too long, but I did as much research as I could on the demographic and the market. Yeah, it got to the point where it really made sense.
Yeah, I think such a key point, and especially again for a younger listener who's hearing this and who might have an idea or might have an interest in something. That stage of what you were just describing is obviously one of the most critical steps, but it's one that does take a bit of work, and a bit of courage perhaps to step outside of your comfort zone, especially if you are a younger entrepreneur. But the benefits of doing it are certainly there, and the pitfalls of not doing it are also there as well. So in that process of exploring and learning a little bit about the market and how it could be, perceived or how it could be, seen, I'm sure there's probably some surprises that popped up along the way. Maybe an assumption that you had that, was, I don't know, that like people saw it differently. But then also, on the flip side, there could have been things that you had no idea, like you did not foresee this thing or this way of interpreting your model, but a few people were commenting on something that caught your attention.
Yeah, we got so far we've been pretty lucky to not have too much pushback on the user side or anything like that. Like it's gone pretty smoothly with what we projected. But one thing that definitely surprised me was on the creator side. In my mind, which again, as a founder, you can't go off of everything in your own mind. You really have to collaborate and ask people. But yeah, no, in my mind, it was a no-brainer, right? It's free, it's non-exclusive, and you're able to build up your sort of brand and following through a demographic that is pretty much exactly the demographic that you're looking to target. But once creators get to a certain level of followers or fame or whatever it is, it becomes a little bit more of like a what can you do for me now type of situation. So that was one thing that I didn't expect. I had to sort of not necessarily pivot because it's still part of our model is getting great creators, but had to work through. So yeah, definitely that's probably the biggest surprise.
Were there any like pleasant surprises or ones that were like, whoa, I didn't even think of this, but this could be a whole different level of service offering or something along those lines?
Yeah, our main demographic that we thought or think or still know that is college students, 18 to 24, because they're sort of in this limbo between sort of that childhood and adulthood, figuring out what to do with their lives. But one kind of happy discovery that we found is that there's a lot of interest crossover between demographics. So, for example, 5 to 10-year-olds, so parents with 5 to 10-year-olds love this product because it's an educational alternative to an engaging platform like TikTok, but it's vetted and it's safe. And the kids actually are really interested in the content that's on there because they're naturally curious people. Curiosity spikes when you're young and sort of dwindles as you get older. So it's interesting to see the similarities between the demographics because at both points in their lives, they're becoming individuals or they're figuring out who they are. So it's interesting to see the different interests that cross over between the demographics, and that opened up a whole new market that we didn't even expect necessarily.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Exactly. I mean, I was just having a conversation with an individual not too long ago on this program, speaking about this very topic, and I was speaking about how generally, I'm also targeting 18 to 24, but also teenagers as well. I mean, that's a stage where people are starting to consider, their professional pathways. But what this individual was stating was like, well, these mid-career professionals as well, where they're at in their lives and the way trends are going right now, people are changing their jobs, at a rate that we've never really experienced before. So you're right. I mean, there's different ways of interpreting it and different opportunities. It's just, having the awareness to seek out this information and being open to it. So I think, it's valuable insight and valuable advice there.
Well, like you said, career transition. I now don't even talk about our demographic as an age. I talk about it as an interest level or a curiosity. It's the content is really for anyone who wants to learn. So we have people who are 60 that are interested in finding a new skill, or we have these college students who are looking for a new career path, or these elementary school students who want to learn about science. Like it's really not an age, like it's non-discriminatory. It's very much a curiosity level. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you just put it out there. Well, maybe you could return to the experience of running this business here. And, a big part of that for a lot of people is this proverbial roller coaster of emotion. The highs are incredibly high and the lows can, they can get down there at different points. So I'd love to know about how you go about managing that aspect of running this business and trying to stay as level as you can through all of it.
Yeah, I think my experience as an athlete prepared me better than anything ever could have for running a startup. Yeah, I would say I'm about as adaptable as they come. And in my day-to-day, I deal with constant rejection. It's rejection after rejection. But I've always been very positive, and every rejection is something that I've learned from. And it gets me closer and closer to a yes every single time. So I don't like to look at no's as kind of barriers. I look at no's as catapults, essentially. So that's kind of what I do to stay sane in all of this. But really just doing what I love and building something that I think can help a lot of people keeps me going and makes it all worth it. So yeah.
And I think you'd mentioned, maybe earlier in the conversation about some of your interests outside of the business, whether it be like, reading a book, taking 30 minutes a day and reading, or, fitness as well, and trying to manage that aspect as well, like your mental health and your physical health on top of, everything else that you're doing, kind of trying to strike some sort of balance in there as well. I'm sure, your time as a professional athlete must have helped with that, the structuring of, how you go about trying to find success.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, your company, if you're a big part of your company isn't going to function properly if you're not functioning properly. So even if you're investing in yourself and sort of, I guess, taking care of yourself, it helps your business as well at the end of the day. Like you can make connections between you and your business. Yeah. So I definitely am a big proponent of taking care of yourself and just making sure that you're good so you can make sure your company is good.
I got this one other quick question just popped in my head too. In terms of your experiences as a professional athlete, again, returning to this point of structuring yourself and what you were just speaking of there, setting yourself up for success, being an important part of all of this. But then also too, like I would imagine that like when you are a professional athlete, you train as hard as you can train and try to get yourself in the best possible position to succeed, on the pitch. But then once you're actually playing, there's so many variables and it's almost like controlled chaos in a way. You don't necessarily know how, the outcome of the game is going to go, right? Like you prepare as best you can, but you don't always know, what's going to occur. And mentally sort of preparing yourself for that over and over again. That unto itself must become a skill in a way that's transferable into this world of entrepreneurship because it's kind of similar, right? Like you have to really be structured in your approach and what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you don't always know how things are going to go. You're trying to position your business, your offering, your service, whatever it might be, to succeed, but you don't always know. So having this mental component of how you approach it and, all right, well, it didn't go the right way this time. All right, well, I'm just going to keep doing this and learn from that experience and then build off of that. I'm guessing there
Yeah,
are some parallels there.
definitely. I honestly, I think that soccer, as opposed to other sports, I would say soccer is almost the most fluid of the sports. There's a lot more gray area when you play. There's no set plays. There's less stoppages. Pretty much you and your teammates out there figuring it out as you go. So I would say that as a soccer player, especially, I've learned to thrive in the gray area and sort of yeah, just trust my gut, trust my intuition, and if something doesn't go well, you pivot and you react and you adapt. So I would definitely say that the high level soccer has for sure kind of catapulted me into being able to succeed as a founder for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that insight there. Well, maybe we could slide into this other segment here, a water cooler story segment. And here I just ask, guests to indulge listeners with a story related to what they're involved in. So I'd love to hear what you have for us today, Ryan.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of the origin story of Dabble. I know we talked about, why I created it and everything like that, but really the moment that it was great is kind of a funny story. But so I was sitting in my upstate New York college house in the middle of winter, and it was freezing cold, and we were broke college students, so we weren't turning on our thermos, we weren't turning on the heat to save
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
utilities. I'm bundled up in my big parka and my beanie on the couch, and my own house. And when I say college house, I mean real college house, like the what you would expect a college house to look like with four student athletes. So yeah, I was sitting there, and one of my roommates or my best friends comes home and says, "Hey, this guy from BlackRock came into to my class today, and they're doing a pitch competition, and they're giving money for prize money to the winners." And we immediately thought, "Oh, we're broke college students. Maybe we'll get $200 for beer, and that'll be great. Like let's just pitch something."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had this sort of rough idea a couple days before that for what is now Dabble, but nothing was ironed out or anything like that. And so we kind of talked for a while, and then we ended up deciding to go with it and just wing it, sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
And we went into the competition, and we were the only team that had been in business for over a year at that point, and we were just concept and just a couple of guys who threw something together 3 days before, and we ended up winning second place in our track, and that's kind of when the light bulb went off, and I thought, this might have some real legs to it. So and like I said, I was at this point in my life where I was sort of in this transition period between my biggest passion, like my entire existence had revolved around soccer, and then transitioning into not really having anything and being sort of lost. And so when I started to research, and I felt that drive again, and that's what really pushed me into kicking it into overdrive. And yeah, that's really how Dabble started, and I've been going 100% ever since.
That's cool. I love that. I love that. Did any of the other friends like follow you into it, or were you the only one like that was yours and you took it all the way from there?
For a while, they my friend was involved. It didn't end up working out on the business side, but we're still really great friends, and he's super supportive, and I'm supportive of him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's cool. You can still share that moment, where things did sort of take off, or where that idea kind of came from. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I love that. Okay, okay. Well, thanks for sharing. I do have this last segment here that I would like to get to, a crystal ball segment. And, as the name suggests, we're looking at the future trends, predictions, so on and so forth. And in terms of, this segment, almost always it's tracking towards AI. I mean, it's just the day and age we're living in right now. And we all know it's transforming industries, it's transforming businesses. And some people might say that, like, something that, say, you're doing or what I'm doing, perhaps down the line, not too far off, we could very well have AI based avatars that are sharing, information on careers or learnings or, all that great stuff. But what would you say to that based on your business, based on what you've understood about the strengths of what you're doing? How do you view AI entering into this space?
I'm not too worried about AI. I think there is going to be a lot of pushback from the general population over the next few years on AI generated video and content and information. But, I think the real human experience is hard to replicate. And really, it comes down to trust. And like you said earlier, when you look at someone who's either been in your shoes or has gone through the path and experienced what you want to experience, or gotten to where you want to get to, that's where you find that sort of personal connection and can really follow them through that passion, right? And it's hard to do that with AI. And so I really do think that the human connection is going to be really hard to replicate for AI. But I will say I'm excited about using AI to, leveraging what it offers, and being able to use it to benefit my users as much as possible. I'm not super anti AI or anything like that, but yeah, I want to be able to use it in a way that helps my users as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the theme that comes up time and time again in this program when we speak about this topic with guests from different industries. Like AI is this great tool, and it can really cut down on some of the menial tasks, I think, or has potential to do so. But you're right, and this is what I believe as well, is that like almost the messiness of the human experience, like there's value in that, right? The personal
Yeah,
connection that you
for
get
sure.
from hearing someone's story, like what you were just relating in your story there, like that builds connection with people, and there's learnings embedded in those stories, and in again the messiness of all of that. And I think that that's something that AI will struggle with. I mean, you could probably get AI to a point where it could make up these stories, but when you know it's not real, like I think there's something lost there, and there's always going to be that that human component where that's going to be our ultimate strength, I think, moving forward in all types of businesses. So I completely agree with you there. All right, well, I do have one last question here. As someone who is also based in careers, what advice would you give to people who are evaluating professional career options for themselves moving forward when they're evaluating their own futures? They're looking into their own crystal ball of what I might want to do or should do. Like, what advice would you give to those people?
I would say just to never stop learning as much as you can. Do as much research as you can about either the industry that you're pursuing, or if you don't know what you're going to pursue, research everything. I think it'll help you make the most informed decision. The last thing you want to do is just make a snap decision based on, oh, my mom did this, so I'm gonna do this, or my dad did this, so I'm gonna do this. You're different than your parents. You're different than everyone that you've met. So really, every person has a different kind of path, and it's your own path. So you should really take the time to make sure it's what you want to do. So I would definitely say just learn as much as you can and never stop learning.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to close all of this out. But I can't thank you enough for taking some time and joining the program today, Ryan. It's been a true pleasure, and I know listeners are absolutely going to love this. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, for those interested in learning more about Ryan and his work, you can do so via his company, Dabbl Discovery. You can also find and follow him on LinkedIn. And for reference, all this information, including links, will be in the show notes. And hey, if you like today's show, please be sure to tell a friend and share. To show further support, you can rate, review, and subscribe wherever you access your podcasts. Lastly, you can check out these conversations or the highlights of these conversations over on YouTube. I did mention it off the top here, life as a ... And if you do make it over there, I would love that like or subscribe. Now, finally, don't forget to join us on the next episode of Life as a, where we'll continue to explore and unearth the details of professions and the people behind them. I'm your host, Christopher Schoenwald. Until next time, stay curious about life and living.